Corinth, the city of prostitution. Look, let me tell you about Corinth. This city was literally built on two ports. Located on the isthmus connecting mainland Greece with the Peloponnese, it controlled all traffic between two seas. On top of Mount Acrocorinth, there was a giant temple dedicated to Aphrodite, and inside worked 1,000 prostitutes. But listen, they didn't call them prostitutes. They called them sacred prostitutes. Ritual orgies that lasted entire days were considered acts of worship. Can you imagine? Paul arrives in this city and is completely shocked. And here comes the strong part. In 1 Corinthians 5:1, he writes about a man who was living with his own stepmother, and the local church thought that was normal. Normal, brother. But the worst wasn't just the sexual immorality. It was how this infected even the Christians. Paul had to write 2 entire letters to clean the church of this moral rot. The expression, to act like a Corinthian, became synonymous with prostitution throughout the Roman Empire. But if you think Corinth was bad, wait until you meet the next city. Ephesus, the capital of witchcraft. Magic books worth 50,000 silver coins were burned in the public square. Do you have any idea how much that is? That's equivalent to 137 years of salary for a common worker. Ephesus was literally the Las Vegas of witchcraft in the ancient world. The entire city revolved around the Temple of Diana, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. But this temple hid much more. Inside it, priestesses practiced rituals with human blood. Merchants sold cursed amulets. The streets were filled with fortune tellers, mediums, necromancers. Paul preached in Ephesus for 2 straight years, as Acts 19:10 relates. But what happened next was incredible. People began to convert and publicly burn their magic books. The silversmiths who made Diana statuettes panicked. Demetrius incited a crowd that spent 2 hours shouting, "Great is Diana of the Ephesians." Ephesus was a city addicted to supernatural power. Every corner had a sorcerer. Every house kept diabolic amulets. To Jerusalem. Jerusalem began as the most sacred place on earth. Solomon's temple shone with pure gold. The presence of God dwelt there physically. But in Ezekiel 16:15, God uses language that will leave you frozen. You trusted in your beauty and prostituted yourself because of your fame. Inside God's own temple, the priest installed cultic prostitutes. The holy place became the scene of religious orgies. Jeremiah 7:30 records something even worse. They set their abominations in the house which is called by my name to defile it. They put idols inside God's temple, not beside it. Inside, but the most brutal betrayal. In 2 Kings 21:6, King Manasseh burned his son and practiced divination by clouds and was a soothsayer. The king of Jerusalem burned his own son as a sacrifice. The holy city had become the headquarters of rebellion against heaven. God had to abandon his own temple. Ezekiel 10:18 describes, "Then the glory of the Lord went out from the threshold of the house." Samaria, the capital of division. 10 tribes of Israel simply disappeared from history because of this city. Samaria began as a political strategy. King Omri built a rival capital to Jerusalem, but what he really did was create the first counterfeit religion in history. In 1 Kings 16:25, the Bible is direct, and he did worse than all who were before him, and that includes kings who practiced human sacrifices. His son Ahab married Jezebel, who brought 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. Samaria became the headquarters of 2 demonic cults simultaneously. But the worst was how they perverted Israel's own religion. They created a light version of Judaism mixed with total paganism. It was easier, more convenient, more popular. The consequences were devastating. In 2 Kings 17:6, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away to Assyria. 10 entire tribes were deported and never returned. Tyre, the fortress of corruption. A prostitute saved her entire family by betraying a fortified city. Why did she do it? Jericho was considered impregnable. Double walls 8 meters high surrounded the oldest city in the world. But behind those walls, terrible things were happening. Joshua 2:1 records that the Israeli spies entered the house of Rahab, a prostitute. In Joshua 2:9-11, Rahab confesses, "I know well that the Lord has given you this land, because we have heard that the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea." Rahab knew her own city. Jericho was a center of massive cultic prostitution. The city that should be a refuge for travelers had become a place of exploitation and violence. In Joshua 6:17, when the walls fell, but the prostitute Rahab and all who are with her in the house, they shall leave alive. God saved the only family that showed mercy in a city that had lost all humanity. Joshua 6:26 declares, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds this city of Jericho." Tyre, the city that believed itself equal to God. The king of Tyre declared himself to be God. Literally, Tyre was the New York of antiquity. It controlled world maritime trade. It had colonies on 3 continents and accumulated unimaginable wealth. In Ezekiel 28:2, God reveals the supreme arrogance, "Because your heart is lifted up, and you say, 'I am a God. I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas.'" He really believed he was a divinity. He built a palace in the middle of the sea and declared himself immortal. Tyre didn't just reject the true God, it competed with him. The city created a religion based on its own prosperity. Women prostituted themselves in the temples, not for the gods, but for pure profit. Isaiah 23:17-18. Odd prophecies. Will it be that at the end of 70 years the Lord will visit Tyre, and she will return to her prostitute's gain? Ezekiel 27:13 coldly enumerates, "With men and bronze utensils they traded with you. They commercialized slaves as common merchandise." God's response was definitive. Ezekiel 26:21, "In great terror I will make you, and you will be no more. And they will seek you, but you will never be found again." Tyre was completely erased. Today it's just a pile of stones in the sea. Nineveh, the capital of cruelty. They would tear the skin off living enemies and decorate the walls with it. Brother, this is disturbing. Nineveh was the capital of the most brutal empire in human history. The Assyrians developed terror techniques that made kings surrender without a fight. Nahum 3:1 describes, "Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robbery." Bloody. This word in Hebrew literally means city of bloods, plural, because the shedding of blood was systematic, industrial, celebrated. Assyrian records confirm the horrors. They impaled prisoners, burned children alive in front of their parents, gouged out eyes, cut out tongues, flayed entire people. But the worst was how Nineveh transformed cruelty into religion. Their gods demanded constant human sacrifices. Nahum 3:4 reveals, "Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the seductress, the mistress of witchcrafts, who sold nations with her whoredoms, Nineveh exported witchcraft. It sent priestesses to other nations to corrupt their cults. Jonah preached in Nineveh, and the city temporarily repented. But 150 years later, it became worse than before. Zephaniah 2:15 captures its arrogance. This is the city that says in her heart, I am, and there is none besides me. In a single night, Nineveh was completely destroyed. Or Sidon, Sodoma's forgotten sister. Everyone knows Sodom, but few know it had a sister even worse. Deuteronomy 29:23 mentions them together. Like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim. Wait, 4 cities were destroyed, not 2. Ezekiel, the 16:48-49, makes a devastating comparison. As I live, says the Lord Jehovah, Sodom, your sister, has not done, she nor her daughters as you have done, you and your daughters. Here's the shock. God uses Sodom as a positive example compared to Jerusalem. That means there were cities even worse than Sodom. Sidon specialized in violence against foreigners. Travelers who arrived were tortured for public entertainment. Pregnant women were cut open for bets on the baby's sex. Jewish tradition records that Sidon created laws to legalize cruelty. They prohibited giving alms under penalty of death. They had judges who robbed defendants during trials. Isaiah 1:10 compares the leaders of Jerusalem with the princes of Sodom. Josephus records that Sidon was consumed by fire that sprang from the earth itself. It didn't come from heaven, like in Sodom. It came from below, from the abyss. Babylon, the mother of all abominations. A prostitute drunk with the blood of the saints ruled the entire world. Revelation 17:5 presents Babylon, and on her forehead was written the name, Mystery, Great Babylon, the mother of harlots, and of the abominations of the earth, mother of harlots. That means all the other cities learned evil from Babylon. She was the teacher, the original source of worldwide corruption. Babylon wasn't just a city, it was a system. A model of civilization based on rebellion against God. Jeremiah 51:7 reveals, Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunk. The nations drank of her wine. Therefore the nations went mad. She didn't just practice evil, she exported it. Her merchants spread corruption along with their merchandise. Daniel was a personal witness. Young people from the best families were kidnapped and mentally reprogrammed. But the most shocking was how Babylon treated the saints. Revelation 17:6. And I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. Drunk, she fed on the suffering of the righteous. Isaiah 47:8-9 records her arrogance. You who say in your heart, I am, and there is no other besides me. Babylon declared itself the only existing reality. Sodom, the apex of perversion. 2 angels of God were attacked by an entire city. Brother, this is the most disturbing thing you're going to hear. Genesis 19:4-5 records, and before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, from young to old, all the people from all the neighborhoods. And they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, so that we may know them. All the people, from all the neighborhoods, from young to old, the entire city mobilized to violate celestial beings. This is a declaration of war against heaven. But Sodom had reached that point gradually. Ezekiel 16:49 reveals how it began. Behold, this was the iniquity of Sodom, pride, abundance of bread, and abundance of idleness. But she did not strengthen the hand of the afflicted. It began with pride, prosperity without gratitude, abundance without compassion. Jude 7 adds, As Sodom and Gomorrah, having fornicated and gone after strange flesh, were set forth as an example, suffering the punishment of eternal fire, strange flesh. They sought relationships with beings from other dimensions. God's response was immediate. Genesis 19:24. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone, and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Luke 17:29 confirms, but the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven, and destroyed them all of them. No survivors besides Lot and his 2 daughters. Sodom became the eternal symbol of what happens when a society completely rejects natural law and declares war on the Creator himself. Its name became synonymous with perversion to this day. Brother, which city of all these impacted you the most? Was it Sodom, with its total perversion? Nineveh, with its systematic cruelty? Or was it Jerusalem, the city that began holy and ended up betraying God? Leave me in the comments which of these 10 cities left you most frozen. I'd love to know what shocked you most about this story. And listen to me well, this is super important. These cities aren't just ancient history, okay? They're warnings for us today. Corinth normalized sexual immorality. Ephesus became addicted to the occult. Babylon exported corruption to all nations. Does it sound familiar with what's happening now? If this video impacted you, if you want me to make more content like this, deepening in the Word of God, showing you truths that most ignore, leave me a comment saying more content like this. Give it a like so the algorithm sees it and knows that this type of message is what you need. Because look, I can keep making superficial videos that everyone makes, or I can deepen in the biblical truth that truly transform lives. You decide. If I see that this video resonates with you, I'm going to bring you more deep analysis, more biblical history, more archaeological context that strengthens your faith. There's so much in the scriptures that you need to know. So many lessons from these cities that apply directly to your life today. If you want me to show them to you, to explain them to you, to deepen together in the Word, let me know in the comments. Comment, God is unique, if you're committed to the pure truth of the Scriptures, without mixtures, without falsifications, without light versions of faith. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who is normalizing sin like Corinth did, or who is mixing faith with practices that God condemns like Samaria did, share this video. It could be exactly what they need to hear. Thank you so much for making it this far. It means a lot that you've dedicated this time to deepening in the Word. See you in the next video. Take care, and God bless you.